you know what? The vast majority of video games don't do much to innovate or change up the genre formula because, let's be honest, if it ain't broke, why fix it? But every so often a game comes along that remixes and reinvents existing mechanics in extraordinarily clever and inspired ways, enough so that it massively elevates the entire experience. So let's take a look at them today. As I'm Jules, this is WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 genius gameplay tricks that made video games way better. Number 10. Destructible environments. Red Faction. It's tough to know what might have happened to Red Faction were it not for its famous geomod tech. A solidly enjoyable Total Recall-inspired first-person shooter, the game was elevated to the next level by its literally groundbreaking destructible environments. Geomod, geometry modification, allowed players to use their arsenal of weaponry to blast the ever-loving piss out of the environment. Whether that was just for fun or to fashion out a shortcut, it was enormously well received by both players and critics alike. The mechanic reappeared in future games in the series, namely the impressively comprehensive Red Faction Guerrilla, though without the wow factor of the original game, the franchise surely wouldn't exist. That's not to say that Red Faction doesn't feel like an impressive tech demo at times. It's very short for one, but the extent to which you were able to tear up the environment felt like a fascinating step forward for the first-person genre. Yet due to the technical challenges of implementing destructible scenery, it remains a rarity today. Number 9. The Social Strand System. Death Stranding. Death Stranding is one of the most singular video games of the entire decade, a mesmerizing big-budget delivery simulator in which players are tasked with getting packages to their desired destinations by any means necessary. As masterfully engineered as the delicate traversal gameplay is, though, it's the innovative Social Strand system that truly takes things to the next level. Hideo Kojima's approach to asynchronous multiplayer allows players to build persistent objects in the environment, bridges, ropes, zip lines, even buildings which can be accessed by other connected players. There's no way to directly interact with others in the game, but being able to see and use their creations and also rate their efforts through the game's like system ensures that there's a palpable connection with other humans embarking on the same adventure. In a game where the player can be left to their own devices for lengthy periods of time, this ensures that they're always tethered to humanity in a small but vital way. Number 8. Controlling one brother with each thumbstick. Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons. Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons is a game that surely won't be forgotten by anyone who's ever played it, largely due to how creatively it fuses one brilliantly unique gameplay mechanic with an emotionally engaging story. The game follows two brothers as they embark on a perilous quest to retrieve a cure for their ailing father, but rather than have the player control one son while the other is controlled by either a co-op player or AI, Brothers is actually an entirely single-player experience outside of the Switch version, which sees each of the brothers assigned to one of your thumbsticks, requiring you to control them both at the same time in order to progress. Given that the older brother is stronger while the smaller one is more agile, you'll need to juggle their natural advantages to keep moving forward, and also pull their collective skills where necessary. This is such a simple idea that it's honestly fascinating that it hasn't been done before, well, at least not this well, and given that the deeply affecting nature of the game's story, it results in a majorly gratifying payoff. This is far more than a gimmick, as the team clearly thought about how the player would acclimate to controlling the brothers simultaneously, and how this would help a certain late game development land with a massive impact. Number 7. The Active Reload. Gears of War. The Gears of War franchise has been widely praised for its innovative cover shooting mechanics, but the feature that truly sets it apart from the competition, well, that is the active reloading. Active reload is effectively a mini-game where you attempt to manually reload your gun. If you can press the reload button again in an indicated area of the reload progress bar, your gun will be reloaded faster, and depending on your timing, you can pull off a perfect reload which grants you damage buffs, but if you mistime your button press, your gun will jam, leaving you vulnerable to nearby enemies. Active reload adds a fun, tactile element to gunplay and enhances the tension of a tricky firefight in the event that your gun ends up jamming. As such, it's surprising the mechanic hasn't appeared in more games, a fact that designer Cliff Bleszinski is surprised by, even freely encouraging other developers to use it. Number 6. The Quick Turn. Resident Evil 3 Nemesis. Resident Evil 3 may be best remembered for inducing Nemesis to the franchise, who stalks the player throughout the game, but by far its most satisfying addition was a pretty basic quality of life feature. The earlier games in the series featured highly divisive tank controls that made even rudimentary maneuvering a real chore, so Capcom extended an olive branch to fans in the third game by introducing a quick turn ability. With the press of a button and the intended direction, players could now turn 180 degrees on the spot, allowing them to more easily escape an enemy rather than having to spend a few seconds awkwardly shuffling around. Given that Resident Evil 3's titular antagonist is terrifyingly lightning fast, it made sense that the game offers more intuitive movement functionality, granting a much-needed boost from the more sluggish movement of the previous titles. Number 5. The Euphoria physics engine, Grand Theft Auto 4. Say what you will about Grand Theft Auto 4, but the game's most pronounced innovation was the decision to use the Euphoria physics engine, resulting in comprehensive ragdoll physics which haven't been much better today. Rockstar clearly knew that they were onto something here given the inclusion of a push button for the first time in the series, allowing players to shove unsuspecting NPCs off roofs and ledges because it's basically entertaining enough to justify the game's existence in its own right. Similarly, watching protagonist Nico get cartoonishly flung around when he's hit by a car is both gut-bustingly hilarious and genuinely satisfying in an odd way, such that it's surprising Euphoria has been deployed in just a few games outside of Rockstar's own output. As it turns out, the reason for this is the cost and difficulty of implementing the engine, which in the case of GTA 4 benefited from being loaded on top of the game's Rockstar Advanced Game Engine, or RAGE. Almost 15 years later, GTA 4 remains the standard bearer for dynamic in-game physics. Number 4. The Nemesis system, Middle-earth: Shadow of Mordor. Without the Nemesis system, Middle-earth: Shadow of Mordor would have been a competent, if not particularly memorable open-world take on the Lord of the Rings franchise, but its fresh enemy tracking system ensured that few would ever forget it. Nemesis was a means through which the game remembered players' interactions with procedurally generated AI enemies. An Uruk that either kills the player or survives a fight with them will be promoted through the Uruk hierarchy, in turn becoming more powerful. If you encounter the same Uruk again, then they will remember you and perhaps even comment on an injury you gave them the last time around. Also, in the event that one of these guys kills you, another player on your friends list will be notified, allowing them the opportunity to avenge you. This is all a fantastic way to make an otherwise garden variety enemy encounter feel meaningful. Further complexities include the ability to generate rifts and infighting between the soldiers, effectively helping destabilize their army from within. All in all, the Nemesis system was far more interesting than Shadow of Mordor's actual cinematic story, so it's surprising that we haven't seen countless open-world games try to rip it off. Well, that is until you learn that Warner Bros. Was recently granted a patent for Nemesis, which would seemingly prevent other games from ever employing a similar system. Boo. Number 3. Climbing almost anything. The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild is one of the greatest video games of the decade, ambitiously taking the franchise into full open-world territory with its massively expansive and rich sandbox. But the game's pièce de résistance is actually something far more simple: the ability to climb almost every part of the environment. This dovetails perfectly into the game's wide open world, where Nintendo presents the player with this gorgeous new rendition of Hyrule and basically lets them do whatever they want. The world is positively teeming with things to do and discover, and climbing is a vital component in fostering a sense of curiosity in players. Being able to scale a mountain and then scan the horizon before taking off towards a landmark with your paraglider is a positively euphoric experience rarely matched in the genre. Climbing feels tactile and also challenging at times, as players need to keep an eye on their stamina gauge and ensure that they take rests where possible. It may not be the most complex aspect of the game, but it is the most inspired, ensuring that players always have a more direct tether to the game world than ever before. Number 2. The in-universe user interface, Dead Space. Dead Space is one hell of a video game any way you cut it, and its atmospheric sci-fi survival horror shenanigans are elevated significantly by the developer's decision to implement a diegetic user interface. That is to say that there's no conventional heads-up display in this game whatsoever. All of the usual attributes that you expect to see displayed on a screen will appear within the universe of the game itself. Protagonist Isaac Clarke's health and stasis meter appear on the back of his suit, such that they're always available for the player to view in every moment of the game. For more comprehensive elements like Isaac's inventory and the map, they're projected as in-game holograms. Because these aspects exist within the game's world, they don't pause the action, meaning that the player is always bolted into the adventure, in turn heightening the tension at every moment. It's surprising that diegetic user interfaces such as this don't appear more often, because when they're done right, they can add immeasurably to the overall experience. And number 1, rewind time to undo mistakes, Forza. Though Forza wasn't the first racing game franchise to implement a rewind mechanic, it certainly was the first to truly popularize it in a way that made even non-racing game fans pay attention. Starting with Forza Motorsport 3, the series has allowed players to rectify their mistakes on the track, rewinding the action to get another go at a tricky corner or approach a hairpin bend a little more conservatively. Given that the primary frustration with racing games is taking part in a lengthy race only to spin out in the final stretch, this is a majorly welcome feature to both respect players' time and keep their blood pressure in check. And the beauty of this, of course, is that purists are in no way obligated to use this feature, and so those who would prefer to suffer for their mistakes are absolutely free to do so, while the rest of us can just breathe a sigh of relief as we take another crack at the road ahead. The problem, though, is that Forza does end up spoiling you on racing games that don't have this feature. It's just so damn handy that it feels like it should be a basic accessibility feature across the entire genre at this point. And there we go, my friends. Those were 10 genius gameplay tricks that made video games way better. I hope you enjoyed that, and please let me know what you thought about it down in the comments section below. As always, you can go follow me over on Twitter at RetroJ with a 0, or you can swing by Live and Let's Dice, where I do all of my streaming outside of work, and it'd be great to see you over there, my friends. But before I go, I want to tell you about a genius little gameplay trick for your own real life, and that is every once in a while, just taking a break. Being kind to yourself, treating yourself with love and respect because you deserve all of the best things in life, and taking a foot off the gas every once in a while will allow you to gain some perspective that you can use to look at your own situation and see where your energies are best spent. So I urge you to do that from time to time, but above all else, just be kind to yourself. As always, I've been Jules. You have been awesome. Never forget that, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.